What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Montana Method podcast. One more time, as always, your host, Nelson Rodriguez Jr., author, creator, director of the Montana Method podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. Elliot Rosenberg. How you doing?
Doing good. Thank you for having me.
We met through a very special guy, Mr. Spencer Cook, a real stand-up guy. I met him recently, but I have a feeling him and I are going to be friends for a long time. He's a very good guy. I somehow have this thing where I attract really special people into my life. It's a divine thing. I can't explain it. I really can't. And, you know, I have to be grateful. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Can't complain. I was following I think it was your Instagram.
Okay.
And I saw the Shantaram, and I totally forgot. I read that book.
That's right. You commented on the video the other day.
And then I didn't even know it was a show. So this is like
Have you seen it?
3 days ago, I binge watched the whole thing.
So I liked the show, but it wasn't the book. They changed so much about it that it became something different, you know?
But for me, I love the show. I mean, I've obviously the book was better, but I read the book trying to think how many years ago. It's been so long. So it kind of was, it was good, you know? And it was a little bit different. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
That book, let me tell you. So, crazy story. I know you probably saw the clip, but I'll tell you the story anyway. So, a friend of mine, I did time in Central Florida.
Okay.
For whatever reason, I think it has to do with maybe that there aren't a lot of Cubans. Since Cubans are immigrants, obviously, they only let American citizens go to camps, like do time in camps. If you're a resident or if you have a green card and you get caught in the feds, you have to go to a low or higher.
Yep.
They don't let you go to a camp. So there was only about 12 of us in the whole camp out of 500 people, which is wild because you would think because it's Florida, there'd be a lot of Cubans. But anyway, so I'm there, and this old dude named Red, everybody called him Red because he was like real red skin tone. Old Cuban guy. He reminded me a lot of my dad. We become friends. Like the first day he's there, I help him out. You know how it is, you know. And from the day I met him until the day I left, he would talk about this book. He's like, man, he would speak to me in Spanish. He's like, man, I can't remember the title. It's a super expensive book on the outside. They brought it in. It's about this crazy story. This guy that breaks out of prison and he does this crazy shit in India. And like he told me the story so much, I got super intrigued, but we didn't have the book. Bro, I tell him, yo, I got my date. I'm leaving. And the night I'm leaving, he runs into my room. He's like, Nelson. And he was holding up a book, and I knew from how excited he was that it was Shantaram. I didn't know the title at the time. He's like, remember the book I told you about the guy? And I said, oh, man. So it was my friend's gift to me, his parting gift. It's the last time I saw him. So I got to read it while I was on house arrest, like halfway house arrest. So it was kind of like my goodbye to the prison system. Great book, man. Such a good book. How long ago did you read it?
I think maybe it was in 2018, maybe.
A while ago.
Yeah.
Did you read this the other one?
No, I didn't even know there was another one.
Yeah. I haven't read the second one, but I've heard it's good. Yeah. Books. I read a lot when I was in there. I read 30-something books. And didn't do much. I only did 5 months. But yeah, books for me were special for me. They helped me reactivate my imagination. I heard you guys talking out there about you had to relearn how to read. Me too, because I hadn't read in a while. Anything specific that comes to mind that you read while you were doing time that really like?
Yeah, so the other book, I mean, there was a bunch. I was in county jail, so over there it was just nonstop reading, and my parents and my sister would ask me what to send in books, and just
right.
You know, I was the book man. I always had different books, but The Count of Monte Cristo, I loved. That was another
such
fascinating
a great classic story. Yeah,
like something about being in prison and reading those books. It just you really feel it, and it just took me inspiring, and I love those kind of books that made me kind of take me out of the prison walls, and then also inspired me at the same time.
That's a special story too. It has all the elements that make a story great, you know, like the injustice of the good guy getting hurt or getting wronged, and then him, you know, his revenge and like avenging his loss, like success is the best revenge, all that stuff.
Yes,
yeah,
100%.
The mentor, how he got mentored, all the classic like elements that you need in a story. I think so I write. I'm in the middle of writing a story now for a comic book. And whenever I try to think of a good story, I always refer back to The Count of Monte Cristo.
And it's also amazing because it was written so long ago. That was probably one of the oldest books I read that I can remember. And it didn't matter. It just felt so, it didn't matter the time.
Such a good book.
Yeah.
Any other ones?
I read a lot of like John Grisham, John Balducci, a lot of like the fiction books. The Mitch Rapp, I forgot even the name of the author, like the action suspense ones. But
the David Baldacci.
Yeah, I read almost all his books and John Grisham. And
it's sick.
Yeah.
I read, I'm trying to think of maybe some fiction ones that I read. I read so much. The Iliad was really good. I read the Iliad. I hadn't read it since high school. It was really good. I read all of Robert Greene's books, like the 48 Laws of Power, Laws of Human Nature, Mastery, all those books. I read this book about Abraham Lincoln. It was really good. It's specifically about the year 1862 and everything he went through, and how 1862 determined America. Like that one year determined our entire future. It was crazy how many things happened in that one year that were like the IRS was created and like so many different crazy things. But yeah. So Elliot, you're originally from up north, from here.
Yep, from Long Island.
Long Island.
Long Island.
Yeah, Long Island boys. That's cool. You're Jewish?
Yes.
Cool. Both sides of the family?
Yep.
All right. So what was it like growing up?
So growing up on Long Island, I went to private school.
Okay.
And after I went to Jewish private school, I went to Israel for a year.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep. Studied in yeshiva there for a year. Then I went back for another semester.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And then went to Queens College and was a college dropout. I just didn't really see the value in it, and I just got kind of bored of it. And then I got my Series 3 license, became a commodities broker.
Okay.
So worked a little bit on Wall Street. And then always knew that I didn't want to work for myself. So, I ended up actually moving to Costa Rica.
Amazing place. I've been there 3 times. I love Costa Rica. It's good. It's awesome.
Yeah, so I became a resident over there. And I lived down there for over 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Such a different experience to living in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
It's like nothing is the same. What was your favorite part about Costa Rica?
Well, really, I had horses down there, so I loved going to all the cabalgatas, the topes. The weather was amazing.
Year-round.
The overall lifestyle. Getting out of the rat race of New York and just always trying to, keep up with the Joneses and make more money. And so it was really kind of overall just, change of lifestyle, just enjoying life more.
I love that. Yeah. Such a change of pace from New York. That's like,
yeah,
that's wild. What made you move down there?
Really? I mean, I had a horse in Long Island, and I was like, you know what? I was gambling at the time and I just wasn't enjoying my life. I wasn't happy. And I said, I went down there for vacation, and I said, this is it. And I can go down here, live, affordably and ride horses. And that's kind of and I just did it. Just picked up and left and started living down there.
Wow. That's cool. You were single at the time?
Yeah.
Like not married, no kids, no nothing? Okay. All right. So 7 years. So tell me a little bit about kind of like life there and then why you left and all that.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of what brought me here today in a sense. I didn't come back on my own.
Right.
So living in Costa Rica was great. Just life was amazing. I had the horses, and then I was working. What was really popular down there at the time when I moved down there, I moved down in 2007. So I was down there from 2007 to 2014.
Okay.
But was online sports books. So I started working in an online sports book, as a manager, and then all went well. And then eventually they kind of were downsizing, and they had me lay off everybody, and then they laid me off. And I was like, oh, okay, I got to find another job.
Yeah,
and then I saw like people that was really popular down there, something called like sweepstakes scams. that people would do down there. And basically call people up, tell them they won the sweepstakes, and they had to pay to get their award. I'm like thinking, who's
going to fall for that?
Who's going to fall for that? I didn't understand it, but then I seen a guy, like a Costa Rican guy. He didn't even speak English well. And I'm like, man, he's driving a brand new Mercedes. It was like over $100,000 car. I was like,
it's crazy.
He's got to be doing something. So I says,
Right.
I lost a job. But I was okay. I was still riding my horse. I was like, okay, I got to find something to do. So I went and I worked for a guy who I knew was in it. I tried it out and boom, made, I don't even know, like $2,000 in one day. I was like, wow, this is that easy. And then I did a little bit more for him. I went to work for somebody else. And then I was like, no, I'm just going to do it myself. So, and then I had all the contacts when I worked at the sports book from my employees that got laid off. And they already called me, hey, we need some work. So I hired one guy. We started with just one phone, and then it just took off from there.
It's crazy how one little decision kind of makes up the rest of your life. I've noticed. I've done a lot of podcasts. This is episode 120 something of my show, and so I've heard so many different stories, and most people's stories always come down to one pivotal moment where they decide to do something, and then it just, isn't that wild? How life just comes down to 5 or 6 of those, maybe most of the time it's 3 or 4 of those moments where it's like that. If that one thing,
that crossroad, you could either go this way or right or left.
Yeah. It's wild, man. All right. So it's, for those of you that don't know, Costa Rica is a hotspot for this kind of stuff. Like, since it's, it's not in the U.S., they can kind of get away with, as long as they don't come back to the U.S., right? You can get away with kind of like the phone scams and all that stuff. So this, since I've been to Costa Rica and stuff like that, I was aware of it. But yeah, for those of you who are, just some context for if you're watching. All right. So you see how easy this is. You kind of put together your own crew. Right? What kind of money starts coming in?
So at the beginning, I come from a business background. So for me, I didn't run it even after the fact. And just don't get me wrong. And now, obviously, I see all the damage that I did. But at the time when I was in it, I didn't really see exactly what I was doing. I was just thinking about the money. I wasn't really thinking about all the consequences, all the people that I hurt. But at the beginning, I just started just myself and one other employee, and then it just started to grow and grow and grow. And then I just ran it like a business. I set up more offices, because just people in that industry are very kind of tough to deal with.
Right.
So there was one fight. My salesman got in a fight, so it caused me to open a second office. Now we go 1 office, 2 offices, then go to 3 offices. At the end, I had 4 offices. I think I had over maybe 30 employees. And
it's a pretty decent sized operation.
Yeah. So it was, it grew tremendously. I mean, at the end, the government said the loss amount was close to $9 million.
In what time span?
In 4 years.
Wow. That's a lot. Were you still at 30 people by the end of it, or how big was it?
So at the end, I had 4 offices
with 30 people.
Divided, around.
Wow. So as you're scaling, what goes through your mind? Like, is there ever a moment where you're like, all right, this is getting too much, or you're like, no, all right, I could keep this going? Like, tell me a little bit how you went from like 100,000 to 500,000 to $1 million. Like, tell me. So
it comes to a point where, remember, a lot of the people that worked for me had families, they had bills to pay, and that's kind of where the momentum, hey, I want to grow. People come, I want to grow, and I don't want to just become, let's just say we have a fronter and a closer. I don't just want to be that. They wanted to grow. So it kind of took over a life of its own, and it kind of ran even though it was an illegal operation, it just ran like any other business. And I did actually, during that time, I opened self-service frozen yogurt stores.
Oh,
I was
okay.
one of the first down there. I got that idea when I was in Colombia and Florida. I'm like, you know what? I like this. And I opened up, when I got arrested, I had 3 stores down there. And so my goal was to really go legitimate and go
eventually,
legal.
Yeah.
Eventually, that was the end goal. But it never
never got to that point.
Never got to that point.
So you said Colombia. Did you live in Colombia for a while?
No, I just used to when
Travel.
I lived in Costa Rica. Yeah, I would just, travel to Panama, Colombia.
You're right next door, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about that area of the world, man. Panama, Costa Rica, Colombia. So I don't know. I can't even put it into words. It's the beauty of the nature and the landscape and the people. I can't even put it into words, man. It really is such an amazing place. I've been to Colombia and Costa Rica, so I can tell you. I've been to Costa Rica 3 times. I've been to Colombia once. I'm planning on going back soon, hopefully. And there's something about just everything about those places. It's not to mention if you're single. The hottest,
Yes.
the hottest, most desirable, most seductive, sensual women you'll ever meet in your life. Like, you're just like, I died and went to heaven. I used to joke around and say that the garden, Costa Rica is like the Garden of Eden. That's where it's at. That's where humanity was created. The cradle of. It's so sick. I love it.
And the nature there is beautiful.
Yeah.
This-
You lived in San Jose?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've been to San Jose a few times. But the coast, like Jaco, San Manuel de Antonio, that whole area is like nuts. The beach and the macaws flying over you. I stayed at this place called the Club del Mar in Jaco. And it was literally like, I would open my door, I'd see the beach, macaws flying overhead. You saw some monkeys out in the... It's crazy how beautiful that place is, The only thing I didn't like is that the water's a little rough. Like, there's a lot of waves.
So you got to go more Manuel Antonio or other beaches.
Yeah, definitely. So while you're there, you see the operation growing. It kind of takes on a life of its own. You have to open all these offices. Is there ever a moment where you get kind of scared? You hear kind of like you're being investigated? Anything like that?
I didn't know about conspiracy.
That's a big one.
And yeah. So
that's a big one. That's a huge one. So what ended up happening in your case? Like, they got to one of your, like the feds got to one of your employees?
So what happened was early on when I started, I used to buy leads. Leads were a big part of the industry. And it's not illegal to buy leads, but that's kind of how and this is by the postal inspector handles this investigation. So that's how they got my name. And once they got my name, an American buying sweepstake leads in Costa Rica.
Right.
I mean, it was over from there. So there was no, they subpoenaed an email address and that had where I purchased leads.
Right.
Right. And my email address was in there. And then the rest was they just built it on conspiracy. And one day I was just flying in to, Miami.
Of all places.
Fort Lauderdale, I can't remember Fort Lauderdale, Miami, but I was flying into Florida, for a vacation and to go shopping, and just I first went off the plane. I was flying business class, and they said they were checking passports, and they saw mine. Says, "Come with us." I said, "What, sir?" They says, "Oh no, just random inspection." And then once we got to the area, they're like, I heard them say the postal inspector's in and out, and I'm like, "Oh, that's it, it's over." And there was it. Once they had the criminal complaint, and once they had that, I mean, I had so many employees and so many people that work for me. You can't fight in that component.
100%.
It's very hard to fight, and it's a conspiracy.
Yeah,
conspiracy, mail and wire fraud, and money laundering.
Yeah.
And the rest is over. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm guilty.
So you said you did time in county, but that's Fed. Those are the feds.
So I got arrested in Florida.
Right.
But they charged me in North Carolina. Why? Because they say, oh, Western Union is based in North Carolina. I never been there in my life, but the money moved through. Even though most of this, the way we laundered money was through United States postal money orders, but still. So I was in county jail for almost 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you come to. Let's backtrack for a second. Is there ever a time, because I'm always curious, it can go either way. Mm-hmm. As a kid, is there ever a time where you break the law, get in trouble, ever when you're a bit younger, like before you leave the country?
So yeah, I was always looking to not say break the law, but how can I cut
a corner?
Cut corners.
Yeah. Okay.
you know?
Okay. All right. What kind of stuff did you do as a kid? Like,
Trying to, like in school, trying to get the test answers ahead of time.
that's always a clear side, trying to cheat on a test. Yeah. You ever seen that movie Slackers?
Yeah, of course.
That kind of stuff where you break into the office and you look at that's funny.
I mean, I pranked one, I'm not happy about it, but I pranked one, this is when email was first coming about. They had Juno, and you could just create email accounts. So I sent a teacher an email from another student, a vulgar email.
That's wild.
And, and they come in to school and they want to suspend him because they think he wrote the email. And
this was a teacher that like failed you in a class or something?
No, I just was just a
just
joke.
messing around. Oh,
yeah.
You were just for the fun of it. That's funny.
Yeah, and then the principal comes to me. Hey, if you did this, nothing's going to happen to you. We just don't want the other kid. We just don't want the other kid to get suspended.
That's funny.
But I was always looking
getting into trouble.
Not necessarily in trouble, but looking for
the shortcut.
The shortcuts.
Gotcha.
Trying to think about the best way to do it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You know what I think is nuts about half of us, or more than half of us, that end up, we're just trying to make money. That's really it. We're just trying to so there's a total positive side of that if we would have just applied that to a different vehicle, we would have been like a successful CEO in the community or something, we would have been like a successful business owner. So we have the right mindset. We're just applying it to the wrong vehicle or applying it in the wrong way. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I equate it to, because my whole thing is, my first inspiration in life was Tony Montana. That's why it's called the Montana method. Mm-hmm. And people always say, oh, yeah, you're inspired by a murdering drug dealer. No, I'm inspired by an ambitious dude who hopped off a boat and said he was going to become a multimillionaire, and he did it. That's what I'm inspired by. I know I'm not going to sell drugs and kill people. That goes without saying. What I'm inspired by is the fact that this guy literally had nothing, and then he became one of the richest guys around, period, not even just the richest drug dealer. So when I hear your story, I hear of a guy who has a special mind. You're trying to connect the dots to get things done faster than other people. And had you just applied it a little differently, which you're doing now, right, you would have had a totally different result. So that's why I love having these conversations, because I get to meet really cool people with really cool qualities, Yeah. You were a guy who was like trying to connect the dots in a different way, So, but anyway, all right. So that's why I wanted to backtrack. I wanted to see if this was like a one-off, or maybe if there was a little something going before, Is there a specific story that comes to mind when you were a kid that you were like, this kind of made sense? Like, I know you said you sent the email and you cheated once on a test or something, but is there one time where maybe like, I don't know, you came up with some like scam and you made like some money, and then, I don't know, tell me about that. Anything that comes to mind as a kid?
Not really, I try to be by the book, except, I guess, just looking to cut the fastest way possible.
Okay. All right. And you come from like a totally normal family, good parents, middle-class parents.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So you get caught in Florida. They send you up to North Carolina. You said you did time in county for 2 years. A little under 2 years. Are you waiting for trial and all that or?
So since I was like the first one and it was a criminal complaint, and they were still
investigating.
Yeah, and the prosecutors from Washington D.C. So they got to fly in, and there's no. Yeah. The court was. It's North Carolina, and their whole court was backed up. There's no rush.
The feds have two speeds, slow and slower.
So there was no rush for them, and that's actually normal. That was almost a normal,
Right.
Normal was about a year and a half, and mine was a little
2
over
years.
that. But yeah, it's nothing like crazy, because people were longer. People were in the jail longer than that.
Right.
So that was kind of almost, a little above average, but not crazy average for the time that it took. And plus it wasn't like a small, simple, just, case. I was trying to negotiate the best,
plea deal and all that.
Yeah, really, it was, it's pretty clear cut. The guidelines and the guidelines.
Yeah.
But it actually worked out really well that I waited,
Because they gave you credit time served.
No, well, during that time, and this is just luck, they adjusted the sentencing book. They rewrote it, and they adjusted the money table for inflation.
Oh, man.
Had they known that was going to be adjusted for inflation, they put exactly 8.9 million. They would have made it higher because for the other people, they made it higher. So I saved 2 points on that, which was they didn't see that coming. And then the other points I saved, they changed like a victim enhancement, where they used to say, oh, if you're over 250 victims, you get 6-point enhancement. And then they changed it. No, it's got to be like 10 victims of financial hardship. So that when I signed my plea, right, they thought it was. The prosecutors thought it was going to be more than what it was, but once they changed the sentencing guidelines, they couldn't
do anything.
They couldn't do anything. Yeah,
that's awesome. So what's it like in county? Like, how long did you spend in Miami, in county, and North Carolina?
So Miami was just like a few weeks to go.
So you did the bulk of it in North Carolina?
No, yeah. So county jail, and it was rough. It was a single cell.
Okay.
And it was mostly locked down. You're talking about like 18 to 20 hours a day locked down.
It's basically solitary. It's pretty wild. I know, did they have the whole wristband thing? Like feds, you know how
Yep. Yeah. It was blue for feds, yep. And you mixed in with
Did they have you in a fed section or they had you mixed in?
No, they have you mixed in.
Yeah. So that must have been wild.
Yeah. I was the big minority over there.
I've never did time in county, but I always get told like they always come up with a nickname for like the Fed guy, you know, like big time or something, whatever.
Yes, yeah, because you're with guys facing months, a year.
Yeah,
and I'm like, man, I'm facing like life.
Yeah, no, because the Feds put up football numbers, you know. Yeah, it's wild.
And yeah, but and it was nice. I spoke Spanish too, so that definitely
that's right.
helped.
You lived in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
What Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, that kind of stuff?
Mostly in there. It was in North Carolina, Mexicans, a little mix of other.
Okay, who'd you hang out with in there? Because I'm assuming there's not a lot of Jewish guys in North Carolina.
It was in one unit. Sometimes I was the only white guy in the whole unit at times.
So you kind of just hung around with whoever.
So it was either like one unit I was at. There was just one white table mixed in. I think we had a Spanish just. Because it mixed in, so either the Spanish or just the white guy, you know, it was real the minority.
The Spanish guys must have been super surprised when you whipped out the Spanish.
Yes, yeah,
that's funny. All right, so but you get a routine down just like everybody else, right? I'm sure. You're reading a lot. How many books would you say you read?
It was just so many.
It was a lot.
All day binge reading, staying up. 18 hours in a cell, like
it's wild.
More, yeah, and then sometimes more. So chess too, and then when I got out, I played chess.
Chess, yeah, that was a great for mental exercise. It was, for me, I loved playing chess, man. It was really good. I used to play against these guys who had been doing time for like 10 years. They used to kick the shit out of me, man.
Yeah, but it's the best because you learn when you're losing, better. You're learning, you're getting better.
And the parallels to life that I learned from chess, they're really good. I wrote down every time I was like, you remember how I said how life always comes down to one specific choice? I noticed in chess it was the same.
Yeah.
The whole game comes down to one move. And if you capitalize on their mistake, then you win the game. But if they capitalize on yours, the game's over. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's wild. So chess was I always tried to find a way to, like, I wanted to exercise my body, exercise my mind, exercise my spirit. So my mental exercise was chess and reading. You know, I used to play a lot of chess. So 18-hour lockdowns, that must have been rough. So you get sentenced. So it took 2 years. You got sentenced to, what is 7 years?
102 months, so 8.5 years.
8.5. Where do you get transferred to?
So then I went like the whole diesel therapy. I think I went to Atlanta.
To Oklahoma, transferred.
I've been to Oklahoma before, so it was Oklahoma.
Right.
I think I'm not sure if that time it was Oklahoma or Atlanta. I think it was Oklahoma that time, and then to MDC Brooklyn, and then from MDC Brooklyn to Otisville camp.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So
my camp was it was actually bigger than normal. I had almost 500 people in my camp at one point. Well, how big
Which
was
camp?
Central Coleman. Central Florida.
So I was in Otisville. I did a lot of my time there, and then I did the RDAP in Miami camp.
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
I got to really experience.
That's where you ran into Ross.
Yep.
You know, yeah, that's cool, man.
Spencer, Ross,
Yeah.
a lot of different people over there. So
Yeah, Spencer. I mean, Ross is a Jewish guy from Long Island, so you guys must have been like, oh my God. That's cool.
Yeah.
So obviously we're comparing county to Fed, and that's like night and day, right?
Once I got to camp, it was like I'm free.
Yeah, right? Oh, I got 6 years of this. I'm good, you know? Yeah, compared to county, that must have been crazy. Is the food better?
Yeah. I mean, well, in county jail, they give you the caloric deficit. You know?
Oh, my God. Yeah, you get so skinny.
Plus, it was the private Aramark Food Services. I mean,
it's horrible.
And in Otisville it was good, you know?
So, since I've never been to county, I've only heard stories. Tell me about like the difference in commissary and like tell me the difference. Like I know obviously the camp already with being in the open air. I don't know. Otisville, does it have a fence?
No fence.
Yeah, the Coleman didn't have a fence. They said recently they put one up, but anyway. So, tell me like what were the biggest differences you saw between like being in county and being in the feds?
I mean, really, just in the county jail, you're just they only change your uniform. I think once a week, twice a week.
Ugh.
I mean, you know, you're just control. You're only in one unit. You can't move around at all. You couldn't work out because if you sweat, if you keep an extra uniform, it's contraband.
That sucks.
So you want to work out, you can't
Horrible.
change your clothes. Commissary was more, expensive. And, you're just wearing sandals. They don't even, it really took a toll on you, physically and mentally too. And, just really just trying to, with the books and the chest, keep my mind just totally
preoccupied. Yeah.
And that was really the, kind of living through an alternative, through the books. And then prison was, I'm not going to say awesome, but
Much better, yeah.
But compared to county jail, I mean, it was great. I mean, in Otisville they had weights.
I wish I had weights too.
Both my prisons had weights. When I was in Miami, they had weights too.
Man,
so
I wish.
When I say in prison, working out was the job.
Yeah,
I had great workout partners, and it was really, really focusing in on my physical health. I read, it was tons of books. So there was like a whole library. Before I had books were a scarcity in jail, right? They were valuable. And that was another thing, yeah. Like I always used to get ordered books, but people would be like, please, same thing in jail. Newspapers were valuable. They used to get the newspaper sent to me.
The reading material.
So prison was, and just so many interesting people, especially in Otisville, a lot of professionals, lawyers, doctors, just all really interesting, good people. Most people were just like me, made one mistake, right? And
ended up there.
Yeah, and they ended up, so that was kind of the main difference. And being outside, the nature, it was up in the mountains, the deers, and it was just, being in tune with nature definitely really helped.
Man, let me tell you, the fact that I could be outside and just gives fresh air, and I love that about being. I reconnected with like Earth when I was at camp. I had somehow, busyness of life, your career and work and this and that. And I lived in Miami, so it's a city. There's no nature there. You'd have to go out to the swamp, the Everglades, something like that. Central Florida is a little different. There's a lot of nature. Being able to sit outside when the sun's coming up, you feel the breeze in your face, birds chirping, put your feet in. I used to take my shoes off and put my feet in the grass, There's nothing like that. I don't know how, but, God's plan, prison reconnected me with nature. It's like this divine process that the world has,
In Miami, and then I went to Miami camp. I was never out. I was outside all day. My skin was like changed colors. It was dark. There they had the weights when I was there, so they had the track, and there everybody was in. Most people were into fitness over there.
Right.
It was like same like Miami in general. The culture translated to the prison culture. Everybody was not everybody, but most people. Were into the fitness.
I wish I would have had weights, man. I would have been pumping weights like twice a day.
That's when I
yeah, right.
It's then you sleep better. Everything revolves around the workout. The workout sessions.
What I did was we did a lot of calisthenics, and then we'd get broomsticks, and we'd tie either water jugs or bags of sand, and that was our bench press or, our little dumbbells. So we made do with what we had. But yeah, it was a lot of calisthenics, and we mixed in that stuff. It was pretty cool. So did you see did you see anything wild go down in county? Anything crazy?
Yeah. The biggest thing, they cut off this. I don't know. They cut the whole ear off, but they cut
a dude's ear off.
They got him.
Wow.
Yeah, and they.
What was the story? Do you know? Did you end up?
Yeah, it wasn't. Very rarely. I don't think I saw at all any like random acts of violence.
Right.
It was a guy and he was talking trash. It was a black guy talking trash against Spanish guys, and they're and just running his mouth, and they got him on the rec area, and there's only one guard in the unit, so they got him out on the rec area, and then they pinned him down, and they cut his ear.
That's wild. They cut the whole ear off?
I don't know. You don't really cause,
yeah.
But they got it. Yeah, they cut it. I mean, enough where they're pressing charge. They in that sense, it was they did it to mark. You know what I'm saying?
Right. To mark
a point. Yeah. And then another time, I saw something really wild too. Like it's one thing I've seen fights. But it's one thing to see, and what I saw was where they attacked one guy. This is also in the same county jail, where it was a gang fight, and it was all like a bunch of gang members on one guy, and the guy was already on the ground, and they're still beating him. Yeah, that's when right. It's one thing to knock a guy out or fight. Once a guy is knocked on the ground and you're pounding your foot in his head, and then the guard's coming in. And they're not stopping.
Holy shit!
Because they're trying to pull them off, but they're going.
They're kind of like shoving their.
So that's kind of like wow, like that's that was not a wake up call. It was like wow, that's real violence.
Yeah, it kind of reminds you of where you're at for a second, in case you forgot, in case you checked out. That's crazy. Yeah, it's that's definitely county jail shit for sure. That's county jail stuff.
And then I was in MDC, so
right.
There you had, they put me in a cell with the guy that had a shank, and you're like, oh,
right.
I'm like, how did you make that?
That's
like
wild.
for me, I'm like, well, that's cool,
That's pretty crazy.
He's like, don't worry, it's mine,
it's mine,
it's mine,
whatever.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. It's such a. So I did some research, and I didn't realize how lucky I was, because feds, when you compare feds to like state prisons, it's not even 10 to 1. It's like 20 to 1. There's so many more state prisons than fed prisons. And then if you go down to camps, it's such a small part of the prison system.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize how blessed I was to end up in the situation I was. And then you hear guys, I'm sure once you were in the feds, you heard of guys, coming down from the pen or the medium or the low. Yep. Especially in Miami, they have like a medium and a low right next door, right?
The low was next door, yeah.
Yeah, that used to be like a medium, and they turned it into a low or whatever. Yeah. Did you meet any guys there who had done like a long time, like who had been in a while and like had a crazy story in the camp? Tell me about them.
Just I guess like this one friend of mine, Sean, his name. I actually met him in county jail in North Carolina.
Oh, and then they shipped him.
And then this is years later. We were tight then. Actually, he helped me hire an attorney too, my second attorney.
Oh, that's cool, man.
And then we crossed paths, same in prison. It was like amazing, right? A small world. You see a guy in jail, and then I met him again in prison. That was an amazing story, only because we're still, a lot of people that have in prison I'm still friends with today.
Me too. Yeah, you meet great people,
and majority of them have the same mindset and are either successful or on the way to be success.
Right.
So it's really, and that's kind of, we use ourselves for like kind of a support system.
Yeah.
And so I really love, have still a lot of good relationships. And even the ones that I don't even speak to like on a regular basis, I'm still connected with. And we're still friends, even if we speak once a year or a message here and there. Those memories and the relationships that we formed over there, it's like your childhood friends, and they just never go away. Those memories.
Me and Spencer talk about it, that it's like people who went to the military, or people who are like a Freemason, or you went through an experience that other people don't understand, and people you meet in there that went through that experience, that went to prison, especially together with you. You were in the same prison at the same time. Not everybody, but you find friends in there, and it's like your friends. It's different. It's a different friendship because people don't understand what that's like.
Yeah.
You have to experience it. I don't want anybody to experience it. I'm not saying go to prison by any means, but you don't understand it unless you go, and it's like a special bond, For me, it was similar. I made lifelong friends. People, and it's crazy. If it wouldn't have been for prison, I would have met these great people, who led me to such great things in life. Is there any lessons that stuck with you that you learned in prison? Anything that, like, one piece of that you're like, man, and you still carry it with you?
Definitely more, patient.
Oof.
Patience and really thinking things through. Analyzing, before I would just think, oh, well, I can make money doing this, or, oh, let me go do this, and not really kind of seeing it all the way through. And now I sometimes I overanalyze now, whether it be in personal relationship, business relationships, always thinking, hey, what's my end result? Where is this going to take me? Where is this decision going to take me? Because that choice that I made, that landed me in prison, of going to, open call centers, really affected my life. So that's kind of where, the one thing that's really that I learned is to be patient and to really analyze and think things through.
For me, it was the same. I would have to say, spending so much time alone, it kind of beat the impatience out of me. Like something about the time you spend in prison makes you patient, because there's no rush for anything. Which is good. You can argue it's bad because you lose urgency, but somehow that extended period of time you spend in there, especially for me, all the time I spent alone, because I spent a lot of time alone, like reading and walking the track and that kind of stuff. Patience, by far, has to be the best lesson I learned in there. It's made me such a better human being, because patience ties into so much, right? It could be compassion. You could tie in patience to, like, working on a goal. It ties into so many different things, having patience with other people, I meet people all the time who have really grew up in hard circumstances and had tough situations, and they're not exactly the most friendly people when I first meet them. And because I have patience now and I have compassion, they become friends later. Like, we become friends at a later point in time, because I was patient enough to have compassion for their situation and saying, man, you don't know this guy. This guy, maybe his mother died. Maybe he just got indicted, right? Maybe his life is falling apart. Maybe he just got diagnosed with cancer.
Yep.
Maybe one of his kids is in trouble, So prison, for me, I think what had to happen to me, I don't know if maybe you can relate. I had to get dragged down to such a bad place to understand how low someone else can be, so that I never treat anybody else like that. Never put someone else in that place, because someone else could already be in that place when they come into my life. Be someone who lifts people up, not drags people down.
100%. That's exactly how I am now, always thinking, because I hit that rock bottom. I mean, I hit it, and now I really always put myself in the shoes of the other person, and asking how they would feel.
Yeah, for sure. So when did you go in and when did you get out?
So I went in 2014.
Okay.
And I got out in 2020.
Okay. So did you, First Step Act or CARES Act, any of that stuff? Did any of that apply to you? No.
No, I did RDAP, so I got the credit for that.
Okay.
And then I got like 8 months of halfway house.
So you got out, did the pandemic start already?
So I got out before the pandemic.
Thank
I was
God.
in the halfway house, and it kind of kicked me into home confinement earlier.
Nice. Good.
So I didn't have to spend as much time in the halfway house, and then when I was working at the halfway house, I had dogs in Costa Rica, so I always had a passion for the horses, and then I got dogs. I actually had a home invasion when I was there, and then I said, you know what? I had the money. I want to buy a personal protection dog. So I bought one personal protection dog, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I could send a dog to attack somebody, and I just liked the whole, the training and everything. I bought another one, and then I bought another one, and then I had 3 when I was in Costa Rica. And when I got arrested, I lost my dogs.
Your
I didn't
dogs,
know how much time. So when I was in prison, I always had a passion for dogs, and I said, you know what? I'm going to become a dog trainer, and I would read books on dog training in prison. I had my sister send me magazines on Canine Cop, Police Canine, dog training related magazines. And then when I got out, I applied to become a dog trainer at PetSmart when I was in the halfway house. So I got the job working at PetSmart, it was like traveling. Did you go to a halfway house or?
I did, yeah. So with me, it was a little different because I was supposed to go straight to home confinement because I qualified for CARES Act. What ended up happening was the guys at the halfway house didn't end up doing the home inspection like they're supposed to send you home. Mm-hmm. And they dragged it out like 2 months, bro. They kept me there way longer than I was supposed to. Mind you, I'm supposed to go straight home. I'm supposed to just check in there, get my ankle monitor,
and go right home. Yeah.
They kept me there for 2 months. You know how it is.
I know.
They don't want to work and they don't want to do their job. What are you going to do? So they kept me there for 2 months, which was everything happens the way it's supposed to, you know. I run into a friend of mine that did time with me in Coleman. We reconnect. He's doing really well now. He's got a credit repair business that he's hitting. Mm-hmm. He's about to have a baby. He's doing really well. Me and him became good friends in Coleman, so I'm glad we got to run into each other at the halfway house because then we had phones and we were on the outside, so we could stay. Oh, give me your phone number, whatever. So we stayed in contact, and he's this Dominican kid lives down in Broward County. Great guy. He's one of those friends. We were always talking about business, making money, legal ways of making it again. We were trying to all right, we fucked up. We don't want to end. So let's look for some good hustles. We're always giving each other advice, tips, things we find out about, real estate, credit repair, all these different things. He knew my thing was podcasting. That's what I wanted to do. He was still trying to find his way of what, and then he ended up finding the credit repair business, and he's doing great.
That's awesome.
He learned how to market on Instagram. He's really good with the Instagram digital marketing stuff. He does his own marketing. So yeah, the halfway house was good for me. Also made a good friend, which I'm trying to get a hold of now. This guy named Blanco. He's got a crazy story. He was in the Caymans in the 80s smuggling cocaine, and he's got this sick story. I want to help him turn it into a book or a TV series or something. But yeah, I spent about 2 months in there, and then I got sent home, and I did about 2 months on home confinement, and then I got cut loose to probation. How long were you on probation, and how long was the halfway house?
So the halfway house was 8 months, but I was on probation for 3 years.
Okay.
But what happened was, so I was working at PetSmart, and then COVID hit. And
they sent everybody home.
They sent another halfway house, but then the job furloughed me.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
So it was kind of really, it was a bad thing, but it was really a real opportunity for me. So I already got my feet wet a little bit, and then I started just training dogs on my own, and then from there, just with my prior business experience, it just took off. Everybody got dogs. And then from 1 client, 2, 3, my schedule's full. And then hired another trainer. And then I hired a marketing agency. And then it just took off, and where I got big, I was like, I always had a passion. I love, and I see that you love, I love digital marketing. For me, it's fascinating, the
Super
psychology.
fascinating. Yeah.
And what I did is I saw how the agency did it, and I says, same with me, cutting corners. I'm like, hey, why am I going to pay an agency to do when I can do it myself?
Do it myself.
So, and what I did is I hired workers in the Philippines. Freelancers there, and this is COVID, so everybody was freelance. And I just, built my dog training business. I had a lot of independent contractors at the time, and then eventually I took out, I had enough revenue. I took out a loan and opened a dog training facility in Long Island. Awesome. And kind of what also fueled me was you had a lot of dog trainers, a lot of people who knew how to train dogs, but they didn't know how to run the business. So what I did, I just marketed, a lot through Facebook ads, Google ads, and had my own marketing team over there in the Philippines, and then just grew my dog training business, and kind of now I went over there actually last year to the Philippines. I have my satellite office there, so I also have like a virtual assistant agency. So I got like other 40 employees over in the Philippines.
That's awesome.
And we just kind of, besides my dog training, I have I sell protection dogs. I got into that. I have a school for people to become dog trainers. That I was successful for virtual assistants myself. I have an agency for virtual assistants for other dog trainers, and so that's kind of where I'm at now, going back from being in county jail on $1, just enjoying a ramen soup, looking back, and kind of always, when I was in prison, I didn't really have a sense of, wanting to go back to prison. So I was kind of afraid of like the gray area businesses. So that's kind of also pushed me over to like dog training, something where it's like, you know what, I'm going to do something where
it's completely legit.
Yeah, completely legit, helping people out, something that feels good at the end of the day.
That's awesome, man. I love that. How big is the company? Like if you had to how many employees, how much revenue?
So I do over 3 million in revenue. So it's probably,
that's awesome.
And it's funny because I went to this conference, a dog training business conference, and probably one of the biggest individual dog training facilities. And I've done it. I've only been a dog trainer for I've got it 4.5 years. I had a facility for like 2.5 years. So I built it. I've trained more dogs than most people train their whole life.
Right.
So I built it rather fast. And which is incredible. And all the customers are happy. We're definitely, besides all the revenue and stuff, invest heavily in the education of myself, training. I finished like this nail pro certification, always getting myself better, training my staff, training them. I always bring in consultants. And really, besides the dog training, it's really on the education, making sure that for dog training, it's about big education for the owners. So really focusing more on the education component of it, of helping the people live a better life with their dog. And it's amazing because in that industry, you get a lot of like testimonial reviews and life-changing stuff for people who think their dog, they are. I mean, they're precious, but for a lot of people, dogs are like their kids or even higher pedestal.
In some cases,
yeah.
That's important. I'm such a dog. I love dogs. I can never be a cat person.
Me neither.
I don't understand people who have cats. Cats, they're the total opposite of dogs. Very selfish, cowardly, kind of always looking out for themselves. Dogs are the opposite. They're loyal to a fault. They'll die for you. They're very noble, great with kids, I love seeing families where you see the dog like kind of like loves on the kid and like protects the kid and has been with the kid since he was a baby, I've seen so many different situations where, I'll see like the kid is taking a nap and you see the dog like sitting by the kid, like protecting the kid, or the kid is like calling the dog and the dog's trying to like warn him from something and you see him save him from like getting hit by a car or like an intruder or something. There's a special spiritual connection there with dogs and humans for sure. I'm more of a big dog guy, but even small dogs are cool. Yeah. But I'm more of like a German Shepherd, Pit Bull, American Bulldog, Rottweiler kind of guy. Great Danes. Even though those are huge, but yeah, I love.
Yeah.
there's something special about having a dog and, you know, special relationship there. I love it. Is there any kind of specific, you just like all dogs? Or
I mean, I have like German Shepherds, Malinois, so I'm a big dog guy.
Yeah.
But really all dogs, but, you know, it's nice to have a dog that is smart, that's,
right.
Has workability. And also, like, some dogs I have just, like, same. They're loving, but they're also, like, they're independent. They like to do. And then it's nice to have a dog that is compassionate and loving.
For sure.
You know.
Elliot, it was great having you on. I always wrap up asking the same 3 questions. So question number 1, what inspires you in life?
So what inspires me is just being, helping people, making the world a better place, just doing it, one day at a time. Just being my better version of myself every day.
I can totally relate. Knowing that someone could watch this podcast and get inspired by a story that was told here, someone I'll never meet, I'll never know who they are. That's pretty inspiring. Having such a big impact that you can't even count, or get to know everybody you've made a difference in their lives. It's inspiring to me for sure. Question number 2, what's next for you?
So what's next is really kind of focusing more on the education component and also for me, the virtual assistants and the expanding to other niches. And, being in a service business is great, but you're kind of sometimes, limited in a way. So really e-commerce and going that route, definitely for the vision for me. And then hopefully moving back, to Colombia.
Now we're talking, right?
Where the weather, yeah. I mean, that's my end goal is, get back and start giving back, enjoying my life, enjoying the weather, focusing, I do now, but focusing more on my, physical health.
Yeah, for sure. Colombia, everybody's moving to Medellin now. That's like the thing. I have a friend of mine who lives in Medellin. It's such a great place. It's the last vacation I took. I'm due for another one soon. Let's see if I go. Last question. How do you want to be remembered?
Really remembered for me and looking where I'm at now is just how many people that I can help, live a better life. And for me, right now it's transforming their dogs, and it's an real emotional thing, helping them with that. And hopefully, more and more, I just started doing like social media, about more of my story, kind of the transformation coming out of prison and now being on my way to success, being successful is, inspiring people that, hey, it doesn't matter how the bottom, you hit the bottom, you can still rise to the top. It just takes, good mindset, hard work and one day at a time and it could happen.
100%. I remember a long time ago, one of my mentors told me, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get everything you want. It's true words that have never been spoken. Elliot, this was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for coming. And we'll do this again sometime.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Definitely,
I really appreciate it.
Definitely, man. How can people connect with you?
Just on my Instagram, Elliot Rosenberg, and my company, one of my main company, K9 Mania Dog Training.
Sounds good. All righty, guys. Another episode of the Montana Method Podcast. Special guest Elliot Rosenberg. Push it to the limit. The world is yours. If you're not chasing a dream, life is meaningless, guys. Catch you on the next one. Say goodnight to the bad guy. Great episode, brother.
Cool, good stuff. Thanks.
Yeah.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.